We've heard people say before that your life partner matters a tremendous amount. And I, sitting here today, have been with my sweet, wonderful husband for 33 years. We've been married for 30, together for 33. We have never hurt each other. We are kind and respectful to each other. We have two biological children who are college graduates with great jobs, and they're kind and healthy and responsible. And we see them all the time. We love being together. We don't pay for their lives and they don't pay for ours. We go on vacations together and we genuinely just love being a part of each other's lives. And Raul and I could not be more blessed. And I recognize that every single minute of every day. When I met my husband, he didn't speak English and I didn't speak Spanish. And I was in graduate school at the University of Chicago, and he was visiting the United States to buy a VCR because the electronics were far behind and poor quality. This was in 1989. The world was not as connected and Walmart hadn't moved in. He was only coming here for a couple weeks. And he stayed for 33 years. A friend of mine said instead of a VCR, he got a lifetime subscription to Netflix. I thought that was funny. I was waitressing on the weekends, and I'll never forget the day that Raul and his brother Chewy walked in. The servers were all standing together, and we looked at these beautiful men walking in, and we turned to each other, and I said, I want the skinny one. He is a beautiful man for sure, but there's something about his aura. I think everybody gets it when you meet him. He's shy, but confident. He's proud and he's also humble. He is masculine and he's also sweet. He's kind and at the same time he has a steel center. And we had just this electric connection the minute we met, and it's never abated. He still gives me butterflies, and our relationship, friendship, marriage is flirty and sexy and tender, but attraction isn't enough. So anybody, not anybody, but a lot of people can have that beginning of this story, but we're all a product of our times for sure. And I'm no exception. So in 1989, it was a rampant issue with my mother's contemporaries, her friends, the people I grew up with, my friends' parents, that the men left their wives for their 25-year-old secretaries and the women got nothing. They were destitute and they were trying to finish raising their kids with nothing. They started working as the school secretary or the waitress. This is before laws were passed and the practice of 50-50 splitting, right? And I remember thinking, that will never be me. I will never be in a position that is that vulnerable. And I knew I was not capable of being a subservient person in a relationship, and that I was not going to be able to be a trophy wife where somehow my value lied in my beauty. I was an athlete and I, tend to be pudgy and I'm competitive and I am driven. And I knew I needed more validation than I was going to get staying at home. But I also wanted to have children. I love being a parent. I love having children. I was young and I knew I wanted to have a family. So in 1989, I felt like I had to make a choice between family and career, because what man that went to the University of Chicago with me would take a backseat to my career? It just wasn't done. And so most of the men around me, even the really smart ones, were also super threatened by me. My intellect, my confidence, and my opinions were all threatening. And when I met Raul, I found a man I could respect because he's strong and proud and has integrity. And he doesn't feel threatened by me in the least. In fact, he's super proud of me. He felt like he was lucky to find me. And he told me that, tells me that every day, and he shows up for me. He was madly and fiercely in love with me. And that might, that in some situations, might be enough, but there's certainly more, right? It might have helped in the first couple of years. We probably didn't always understand each other because of the language barriers. There's certainly a couple of times when it hurt, but I think it certainly helped. Many of the women who are my contemporaries, they have two different stories. So I'm 55 years old right now. The women that I know either married a man who ultimately became threatened with the woman's success. And after a ton of pain for everybody, including the kids, if they had kids, their marriages ended. Another scenario is somebody who married a man like I did, the union guy, the plumber, or the artist. And a decent amount of those have worked in the long run. There wasn't a model for shared careers back then. I still certainly see men getting very threatened by women around them. So I just think your choice in life partner is hugely impactful. It certainly has been for me. It has been everything. So the passion was there, and I could imagine having a family and my career, which was great. Check those boxes. And our values are very aligned. So family first, integrity and commitment to doing the right thing. And he pretty quickly became politically aligned with me. And let's just say he didn't have very strong opinions. I do. And he evolved very quickly. One thing I'll say is that my friends who have husbands who have different political perspectives and very different values seem to struggle a lot, quite a bit. If my kids ask for advice on this, I warn them to be careful. Of course, my oldest heard me and she got it right away. The second one had to figure it out for himself the hard way. I didn't get married, but started a relationship with someone with different values, a different political perspective. And it ended up becoming a problem. I know it works for some people, but most of the time, I think that's a challenge. So with that said, values and political alignment, I think, is super important. In 1989, the Mexican cultural progress seemed to be a few decades behind us. So my sweet, sweet husband definitely came to our relationship straight from an environment that was very, very, very gendered. I would not actually agree to marry him for quite a while. He asked for a long time because I told him I wasn't going to iron his clothes and I wanted a feminist as a partner, a man who was a feminist. He promised me he would do everything he could to meet me where I was and where I needed him to be, and that he would do half. But it's not like turning on a light bulb. Good intentions, though, we all have that stuff super embedded. So there were hidden challenges with where the cultural differences meant I didn't even realize some things were super gendered, like doing laundry. Why is doing laundry more gendered than washing dishes? I don't know. I don't get it. And I didn't get the roadmap. And I only noticed a pattern of frustration. We seem to get in a fight every time we're going to go do the laundry. And so over time, really working through trying to understand and care for the other person, and yet still make sure that we were doing 50-50. Well, it's never 50-50, but at least there's like a good intention. So Raul was 100% in, as you can tell. He was after me, willing to do whatever. He's 8 years older than I am. He had never had a serious relationship because in Mexico, and during those years, if he'd gotten serious with someone, he would have been marrying them, and he wasn't ready to marry anyone. He didn't find anyone he wanted to marry. He was more mature than me for sure. And he was ready to settle down and make a family. He was 32. I was 24 when we got married. And I still wanted to go dancing and have fun. So we had a few challenging years where he had just assumed I would be the married mother and do the things. And I ended up moving towards that kicking and screaming. Ultimately, everybody gets there, but we weren't on the same page for a hot minute there. And there came a point in our marriage about 3 years in where I really realized I wasn't very nice to him. I was spending a lot of my energy trying to protect myself and to make sure that I wasn't being put into that gendered role. And as a result, my focus on protecting me actually was at the cost of being kind and loving to him. He was a role model and is a role model for me. He made me the centerpiece. He did everything he could to make me happy. And I needed to evolve. I needed to put him in the center and to spend my energy supporting and making him happy and being patient and ignoring the frustrating things. It used to bug me when I would go into my car and the radio station had been changed. And I remember distinctly thinking, at one point in time, like, I'm going to decide instead of getting aggravated that this actually is a moment for me to think about how much I love him as I turn that channel back. And I just say that it's sort of a silly little simple thing, but I don't know why it bugged me, but we have a choice. It's either glass half full or glass half empty. Neither of us is perfect.